A tribute to my late beloved grandmother, Mrs. Victoria Sikiade Tubi, from her first grandson, David Olawale Ayinde. Before I go into paying tribute to my late beloved grandmother, I'd like to dedicate this song to her. It's one of my favorite songs that I loved listening to and watching uh, growing up in Nigeria. Ọmọ mi ṣeun rere tí a dára o. Ọmọ mi gbọ́ tèmi tí a dára o. Ọmọ mi ṣeun rere tí a dára o. Ọmọ mi gbọ́ tèmi tí a dára o. Tọ́mọdé bá hùwà burúkú wọ́n ní bàbá rẹ̀ ló kọ́ ọ. Tọ́mọdé bá hùwà burúkú wọ́n ní ìyá rẹ̀ ló kọ́ ọ. Ìyá mi fọ̀nà tó dá hàn mí láyé. Bàbá mi fi wà tó dá hàn mí láyé. Láyé tí mo wà yìí kò máa yé mi o. Láyé mi ò lọ́rùn kéde mi láàyè. Dín 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 dín. Din 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 din. Din 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 din. My late beloved grandmother, Mrs. Victoria Sikiade Tubi. I remember my mum taking my brother and I home to Nigeria in 1976. And we stayed with our grandmother, Mrs. Victoria Sikiade Tubi, in Oyo State, Ibadan. And my grandmother was responsible for teaching us Yoruba. So she taught us the language and she took good care of us. I also remember when she came to visit us in boarding school when we were in Alafia Nursery Primary School, Mokola, Ibadan. My grandmother would come down with loads of provisions. She would give us money. And anytime we were feeling lonely, sad, crying, missing our parents who were in the UK, back then, my grandmother, she was a shoulder to cry on. And my grandmother was also responsible for getting my brother and I into secondary school. And I do also remember when I didn't get the first choice that I wanted for my secondary school, I was crying. I threw a tantrum, and my grandmother just came up to me and said, "Look, this is a good secondary school. It may not be your first choice, but it's a really good secondary school, and you are going to, enjoy it. All you need to do is, work hard, face your studies, put your mind to it." And believe me, I'm so happy that I heeded to what my grandmother said, because I ended up having the time of my life there. I had a wonderful time in that secondary school, and I really did, well in my, education there. And so I'm really, grateful for, my, grandmother, because, she, taught me and my brother well. She taught us, good manners, how to conduct ourselves, how to respect our elders. So that my grandmother, taught me, very well. But what I also loved is that I loved hanging around my grandmother. I loved the stories that she used to tell. She used to tell, wonderful stories. She could go on and on, but it was so sweet, hanging around her, telling those stories about, my mum, how my mum, got on, how my mum, came over to the UK, and how she would go on about her remaining, children, my uncles and aunties, and my grandmother. She loved all her children. She didn't love one above the other. She loved all her children, even her grandchildren. She loves her grandchildren. She loved me so much. And, something about, the first grandchild, you know, grandmothers usually love their first grandchildren. My grandmother, loved me. She went out of her way. I mean, she did, all she could, do for me. And her pet name for me was Olawale Ayinde, Adebo, Ajao, Okomi, Ajao. This is what she said, and it was so sweet. That was her pet name, for me. So she was really sweet. She was really good to hang around, and people that saw my grandmother, loved her, and you know she was a wise woman. And I remember when she used to go to Lagos to visit my uncles and aunties, and also she also went to Ijebu-Ode because one of my aunties was living in Ijebu-Ode at the time, and she would ask me if I could, take care of her shop because she didn't have anyone to take care of her shop, and I would not hesitate. I would go there, look after her shop, order, the things that needed to be ordered, and I would stay there till late, make sure that I, took care of the shop. People would come in, and it was brilliant. My grandmother, taught me how to run her shop. It was amazing. And when I look back now in hindsight, in terms of the skills that my grandmother, taught me, it was amazing. And she has actually been instrumental in terms of the person I am today. So if it wasn't because of her, what she invested in me, I would not be where I am today. So I am so, honored, for what, and grateful for what my grandmother did. And also, she got to see my parent-in-law, and she got to see my wife before she passed away. And also, she came to the UK a couple of times. She came to the UK. She stayed with my mum, and she stayed with my auntie. It was brilliant. It was just wonderful seeing her again. It was just amazing. And as I said, I just loved hanging around her. She was a really wonderful woman, and everybody that met her as well, and never had a bad word. They always had good things to say about my grandmother. And I know she's gone, and I'm going to dearly, really miss her. But she gave her life to Christ. She's gone to be with the Lord. And, it's a celebration of her life. She lived a good life. She lived to 104 years of age. And, that is amazing for someone to live up to 104. So she lived life to the full. She did well. So it's amazing. And as I said, I'm going to really dearly miss her. And these are my fond memories of my beloved late grandmother, Mrs. Victoria Sikiade Tubi, from uh, her first grandson, David Olawale Ayinde.